now we're going to pivot to talk about not only a little bit about International Clash Day, but more importantly about non-commercial radio and the future of non-com radio and the president and the role and everything it does. And Gabriel Teodros, thank you so much for joining us out of Seattle.
Thanks for having me.
We're so excited that you're with us. For those of you who don't know, Gabriel has the KEXP program early. It's just called early, right? It's just flat out early.
So yeah.
5 a.m. Seattle time, which I was telling Gabriel earlier in DC, that's 8 o'clock. So that's perfect timing for us here.
Nice.
In our neck of the woods. But he's been doing Monday, Friday, right? I mean, all the way through the week?
Yeah, every weekday.
Every weekday. How are you doing with the 5 a.m. shift?
Oh man, it's rough, man. I'm up at 3 a.m. every morning pretty much. But I love it. Like since I started at KEXP, I always kind of wanted to be on 5 days a week, just to be able to respond to things in real time more regularly, have little special days of programming. And it's been a blast, you know?
So today's fun, as we said with Tim at the beginning. Again, the Clash mean a lot to certain people and they mean less to others. And it's fun that KEXP, like other non-commercial radio stations, have an opportunity to do kind of kitschy, fun stuff like this. And certainly, one of the things that I thought was so spectacular. We're going to put the link to the archive of your set this morning is online already, and we're going to put that into the chat. And I could not recommend it, highly enough. I just thought it was so moving because, again, the Clash for me. And I think Tim said this better than I can say it, but for me was sort of that awakening point, as a kid, that you can have amazing music, but you can also have the ambition to try to understand your world and talk about your world and talk about different types of music and different, things happening in your community. And what you did this morning, which I just thought was so spectacular, was like the Clash should not be in a museum. Band, I mean, you can have music museums, it's fine to do that, but really it's about how do things connect to what's happening now.
Exactly.
And to hear, so talk a little bit, I'm sorry, I'm talking too much. Tell us a little bit about how you guys are approaching the day and what the intention is in terms of this kind of silly holiday, made up holiday, and how you're connected to community organizations and activism.
Yeah. So, I think this is the 9th year that the KEXP has had International Clash Day. And if anyone's like unfamiliar with the history of it, the way it started is hilarious. John Richards, the host of the morning show, was playing a Clash song randomly one morning. The day has no significance other than this story. He was playing the Clash one morning and a listener requested another Clash song. So he played 2 Clash songs back to back. And then more listeners started responding. And all of a sudden he had all these Clash requests. So he said, okay, it's International Clash Day. And it happened that spontaneously in the moment. And now we have like a holiday that's actually like acknowledged in several cities all around the world. Like different radio stations have been tapped in. It's been really inspiring to see like how many people have just jumped on and said, yeah, International Clash Day, we're riding for it, I did not grow up on the Clash. I did not know about their music. I'm a hip hop head. Like I am a child of hip hop first and foremost. I'm a hip hop artist before I even came to the radio. So for me, doing Clash Day this year, and this is the first year that I've participated, I had to do some homework, and it was fun. Like I learned a lot, but I also heard things I didn't like, particularly the song White Riot. Mm-hmm. I heard that song. I was like, oh yeah, they just weren't thinking of me or people of color when they made this song at all, So there's an element of that as well. But like with respect to all the positive things that they've done for, people all around the world. And I really, what I loved most about what I learned in studying the Clash's music is the way they spoke to international issues, the way they spoke out consistently against oppression. The Sandinistas album in particular really stood out to me, speaking about, things that were happening with the US's involvement in Nicaragua. And I was able to connect that in the show today to the crack era, you know what I mean? And so I looked at songs like that, songs that talked about something that I could connect to something happening now. I started the show with London Calling. I listen to so much music out of London today, like it's ridiculous. Like I kind of wish I could have just done a couple of hours of music from London being made right now, but there was so much I wanted to touch. So, I started with London Calling, and then I just kind of transitioned into the music of London now, across genres. I thought it was really interesting that Joe Strummer himself was a big fan of early hip hop, supporter, collaborated with people, brought hip hop artists and poets on stage, like the brother was talking about earlier. So I thought that was cool. I found some songs that sampled the Clash. And most importantly, yeah, the influences, because they were so influenced by reggae music. And I wanted to point to a lot of those kind of artists. And to answer the other part of your question, so this year, every year, Clash Days kind of had different themes. We were talking about what this year's theme would be. I believe it was the same week that the insurrection happened at the US Capitol, which was fascinating because, there were signs that literally of these people that ran in the Capitol that said we're anti-fascist, which really doesn't mean anything other than you're a fascist. You know what I mean? And there's just been such this like misinformation about what Antifa is, coming from 45 all the way to the right-wing media and Fox News and everything. Like, is Antifa an organization? Like, no, it's just anti-fascism. And that shouldn't be scary. Like, the United States was anti-fascist in World War II when we were fighting Nazis. It's not a radical thing to say you're anti-fascist. You know what I mean? But, so we kind of focused in on this quote from Joe Strummer, where he said, we're anti-fascist, we're anti-racist, we're anti-violence, we're anti-ignorance, we're pro-creative. And we just focused on that as a theme. Somebody brought up the idea to bring in community organizations who do that work and highlight them throughout the week and throughout the show. So it kind of just got put on my shoulders to get all these organizations in, and we did that. And also on the international level, my coworker Albina, who co-hosts the Latin music show on Mondays, El Sonido, she developed a bunch of amazing partnerships with radio stations from around Latin America. So on every show, we're highlighting a different partner radio station, and we have guest sets from them. So I highlighted a set from Mexico this morning, which was really awesome. And yeah.
And part of what was so moving, I thought, about your show this morning, and I know it's happening throughout the day and others are doing versions of this, but you had community organizers. So as a platform for community organizers to talk about their work and talk about what they're engaged in, but then to connect it to music that inspires them. That's exactly. Like from now.
Exactly.
And that to me is what really just kind of squared the circle, because you got, you got the Clash, you've got the, again, I don't want to, ruin everybody's experience of Gabriel's set this morning, but, closing out with Tosh, it was just amazing. This incredible, kind of deep Keter Tosh cut, that was part of what inspired, the Clash, that kind of music. But then also, here's Nipsey Hussle. Here's stuff that is happening in the moment, that is really inspiring, doing for the 14-year-old version of me now, so what the Clash meant to me when I was a kid. There's all this amazing art and culture, which again is a big part of what KEXP does, right? So, and we've talked about this in previous shows, so we don't need to kind of go through it because we talk about KEXP a lot, but the whole kind of reconceptualization of what a community radio station is. And could you speak to like how that fits in the different pieces of your world? Because you've got a musician artist side, you've got sort of community engagement side, you've got the radio station, you've got, all the different pieces that, KEXP kind of is the hub, right?
Mm-hmm. It is. It's a great, it's a great home for connecting people to all this great independent, local, national, international music that otherwise wouldn't be heard anywhere else. And I don't know, I feel like I've consistently been doing the work of bringing all the pieces of myself together, and the work that I do on KEXP is just one place where I can do that. And there's certain things that I can't do on the air as well. Like I can't talk about my own music as much. I definitely can't promote it or play it. You know what I mean? So, but it's still something really special to be able to be of service every single day. to connect with human beings, to engage with the listeners. And like we did today, bring in like some, amazing community organizers and give them a platform to speak about what they're doing, to hopefully highlight and bring some more energy to the stuff they're doing, and also get them to, talk about the music that inspires them. So, yeah.
That's awesome. And let's bring Jessica into the conversation, and Alex put the Bandcamp link for Gabriel's work, so everyone should check out his music as well. And Jessica, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
I'm here. I'm just like totally overwhelmed and like furiously scribbling notes over here, basically.
Hopefully not all constructive criticism on what we'll do better next week.
No, I just think it's all really relevant conversation that all, has been, it's all connected basically is what I realize. Everything from the work that Najeen is talking about to like your points about how we have to learn how to better integrate art and culture into policy, because it's truly what fuels humanity. Not to be like too like corn cheesemo, but like it's really what drives us and inspires us. And like, I think this year with us all being stuck at home and being, kind of left to our own devices, we're realizing how essential and important art is, and community and all the things which you guys are touching on now.
So let's back up and give you a proper introduction or some proper context. So Jessica is one of the ringleaders behind another new initiative that came grew out of 2020, in which again, and we've talked about this in previous shows. And again, I don't mean to be like nostalgic or whatever, but it is just, I've been blessed to do this work for almost 25 years, and to see all the innovation and entrepreneurship and just people getting together and organizing and seeing like there's something that we want to engage with. We're going to get the squad together. We're going to put our people together. We're just going to take one step, forward. And whether that's Neva or Nita or Be an Arts Hero, or I think, what FairPlay has been up to, I just think is really, really inspiring. And I know, Gabriel, you've intersected with that work as well. Jessica, why don't you talk a little bit about the work you do in your day job, but then talk a little bit about FairPlay, if you don't mind, please.
Well, my day job is running an artist development company called Cosign. We've been working, helping break independent emerging artists for, the last decade. We specialize in radio promotion. We pitch music to music supervisors and brand folks for placement in film and TV, and also do our fair share of marketing campaigns with brands and stuff like that as well. And that has really, been the core of my business, for the last 20 years, if I'm being honest. I worked for another radio promotion company before that and really kind of cut my teeth in Los Angeles and then moved out here. But have always really been centered around hip hop and dance music, and have of course built into something bigger. Now we represent a ton of rock bands and independent artists from all over the globe, truly. But this conversation around diversity and kind of like fighting for space on playlists is not anything that's new to us. And I think kind of it's been a part of the conversation. Diversity has been a part of the conversation in non-commercial radio for as long as I can remember. And I think what we saw this summer was like a culmination of things with the unrest that happened around George Floyd, and people kind of realizing, okay, we've been having this conversation for a really long time. It's time to take these matters into our own hands and actually make moves on it. So from the moment the capture, the pause the show initiative launched, we took a day to kind of stand back and speak internally as a company, but also invited all of our community to form this or come on this community call with us and talk about what was going on, what we want to do, how we want to move forward. And that's since evolved into what is now FairPlay, a nonprofit organization, which still meets every Tuesday. We still have our community call every Tuesday. And we've just, we keep building and getting more members every week. We have great people from stations like KEXP, but we also have stations from, Grand Rapids, Minnesota. We have stations from Los Angeles. We have stations from Raleigh, North Carolina. And we're talking to DJs, labels, independent music labels, whoever, about just kind of how we can work as a community to kind of make moves on those issues. And we've put together a list of goals and actions, and together have been really working towards encouraging stations and just folks within our community to keep this conversation around what's been going on in the protest, the movement for Black Lives, just elevating voices within different communities, connecting with community, truly encouraging stations to become the servants of their communities, which they have been always intended to be, and like really putting it on ourselves to create a toolbox for people to engage and start this conversation with listeners, with, online, with their family members, wherever they can, essentially. And yeah, I mean, it's been a beautiful thing. Gabriel's been awesomely supportive of us. I'm so thankful for you. He was on a great panel we did with the folks over at WXPN for Non-Convention, which was truly kind of like giving folks an explanation of the group and what our goals and actions are. He was on with Davey D, Tariq from Radio Milwaukee, Steb from KRML, and this woman named Malia Lazou, who's been an amazing help to our organization. She works at Urban Labs and has a consulting company based in Boston. And we've just been slowly adding folks into the mix. I won't ramble on forever, but we're working on a lot of great stuff and still building this toolbox, which any of our collaborators and members can access to really help kind of, if you don't have a newsroom, but you want to be covering this issue, here's content you can run and use. If you don't have social media posts that are relevant to what's going on right now, here's what we've created that, you can take and repurpose. So it's constantly kind of evolving and building on those different levels.
And I appreciate what you said in terms of the through line of the conversations today, because, really it gets at, this whole question of how do we think about public media? What is public media? What is non-commercial media? What is its role? What's its function? What tools does it have as disposal? And how, does public media and music, focused public media stations, how do they fit into some of these broader questions around equity and justice? And sort of a real, sort of honest recognition that the music industry that, was shut down in March of 2020 can't just be back up at it the way it's been. I mean, we talk a lot about, how hokey Build Back Better is, but that's exactly right. I mean, we need to be very intentional and mindful about the kind of structural challenges the industry faces.
We have to give it up, though, to the radio stations out there who have pivoted and just made it happen. It's amazing. All the at-home broadcasting, all the basically all the little tweaks that they did on a dime to make sure that they were still present and coming to us and providing us news or our musical landscape or whatever it is. It was pretty inspiring to see.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. So one of the things we talk about are just resources. And we talk about, and we think a lot about, again, the idea that the Corporation for Public Broadcasting started as a vision, 50, 60 years ago. And it sort of was meant to fill a need that was perceived in the 1960s about what commercial media would or would not be able to do, and how that related to what we wanted to see from a public policy perspective. And so, a lot of us have been having these conversations about what does that look like in the future? How do we reconceive that, and how to resource that? What does that funding level need to be, and what kind of jobs need to be filled? I mean, I know it's sort of an impossible question because, we're just having to sort of crack open the preconceived notions of the world that we lived in for so long in terms of public media. But I would love to hear either of your thoughts or both of your thoughts about what does that reconceptualization look like in this broader context of all these pieces kind of fitting together, that it's not about a public radio station anymore. It's about a community organization that does all these different things if they want to. I don't know, is that a question you can do anything with?
Absolutely. For me, just as a DJ at KEXP, I think of us as stewards of a public, of a public radio station. And as that, it's our job to always look at what stories are not being told, who's not in the room, what voices are getting left out. And if there's, some voices that are not in the room, it becomes our job to bring those voices in to make sure they're heard, and to make sure they're paid, to make sure nobody's tokenized in this either, and it's constantly a work in process. You know what I mean? And people respond to it in a really deep way. I think that's something I want people to really know about the changes that have happened at KEXP, that our numbers are higher than they've ever been since they added like some people of color to DJ during the day. You know what I mean? Since they made these programming changes where they've just brought in more voices. So everyone wins when more people get heard, everyone wins, and I go back to the principles from the Allied Media projects a lot. Just when I'm thinking about work that I'm doing, a few key things that I always think about are to begin by listening, and know that no matter what issues you're facing, no matter what issues there are in the world, there's always people working on it. Find those people and amplify those voices, learn from them. It's not our job to always like try to recreate the wheel or, act like we're pioneers in anything. One of my great mentors, Haile Garima, said to be a pioneer, to be the first of something is a great failure. Anytime that somebody says you're the first of something, it's your responsibility to find people that have done it before you and learn from their mistakes so you can, be a part of that continuation and do it better. So I don't know. Those are my pieces of advice. I also just want to say that, man, I'm such a huge fan of all the work that FairPlay has done. I'm friends with Jessica. She's helped my career, but also just in the last year with FairPlay, I've gotten so much from the few community calls I was able to make it to. They've definitely helped inform my work, and that toolbox that she's talking about has definitely, I've used things from that on the air in KEXP. It helped, just build tools for the election. So I just wanted to publicly say that. Thank you, Jessica. You're amazing.
You're welcome. I mean, truthfully, the group is amazing. I really just am in there kind of moderating the conversation. That's how I see my role. I'm the person that connects the dots. I do want to also agree with you in that there are a ton of groups out there right now doing great work around these issues. And I think the more that we talk to people like Public Media for All or the Black Music Action Coalition, or we read what's happening, I know Celeste Headley just published a large open letter. Everybody's doing great work, and there is, to tackle the problem and move forward, truly, I think we have to be kind of looking at all of this stuff and cherry picking the stuff that makes sense and moving forward from there. The issues with public media, I feel and just kind of, I guess maybe I should speak more just to the music side, is that people have kind of a preconceived notion of what it is. It's always been kind of especially non-com stations or whatever. It's kind of a white indie rock thing. It's run by, older folks, and we're looking at we need to diversify our audience if we want to keep building and growing. And I mean, I think that's where KEXP kind of won, is that they saw this moment and they moved on it right away and made changes to their on-air staff, but also made a ton of changes internally. Even before everything that happened over the summer, KEXP is the first station I ever knew about that would translate their press releases into Spanish or add, the Albina's up on the YouTube talking to everybody in Spanish when they have sessions. We need to be doing forward thinking things like that to make other, like all audiences feel included in broadcasts and kind of moving forward. And like, I think that like, that's kind of what we're doing. Our group is kind of like, all these different stations meeting together to talk about like, okay, we tried this. This is what we're doing. Like, so, 2 weeks ago, we have on Stacy from Louisville Public Media talking about their D&I study. Next week we have like, somebody coming on, Bruce from Indy 103 in Colorado, to talk about the initiative that they're doing for Black History Month. Like, we are truly collaborating to make sure we're sharing information, we're sharing content, and like everybody has everything they need to kind of like, oh, I could do that, I could move that. We did a workshop last week with a community group here in New York City called Capture the Movement, and the woman is a filmmaker here, but she was just like, here's how I put this together, this photo exhibit together, and it turned into a conversation about how easy it was and how much you gain just by reaching out to talking to a community organizer, community leader. I think like in having these conversations, it becomes easier and more normalized for stations to begin thinking this way. Like, I can't tell you how many times we hear that from folks like, oh, I'm just doing this now because this is what we should be doing, And I think that that's like, we need to be sharing information and sharing ideas. And so everybody's kind of like truly reconnecting, and like, it's not going to be the same process for everybody. I mean, we're learning that as we go, right? But there is always, I haven't found one person I've talked to that's been like, oh no, nobody's interested in like, reconnecting with me, talking to us about this, like there's excitement, and there is like, it's kind of like, people getting involved with community, with non-commercial radio. It's like, they want to build this community. They want to be a part of something. And like, by bringing people in, whether it's community leaders like KEXP is doing, or somebody, an outside photographer who's talking about what they're doing, like you're changing the way that you're telling the story. You're getting news directly from the source, and that's over and over with something we've been hearing. I'm sure you have too, Gabriel.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah.
I think, Jessica, I think it's so smart, because a lot of what I feel like you're doing at FairPlay is, there's this great concept called climate grief, right? Which is that climate change is so overwhelming, you just can't get your head around it and just shut down as a human being. And with a lot of these structural issues that we talk about, there's similar dynamics where it's too big. Like, how do we fix music? Like, what do we do? Like, how do you get there? What does it even look like? And what I love about the work that you're doing is it's just like, just put one foot in front of the other, like just share information, share ideas, do stuff, like just kind of chip away. And as you're chipping away, everybody's getting more engaged and sort of smarter about what these things, could look like. And then we can see the structural change through alignment with organizations like the Non-Com Music Alliance, which is the first time that 140 music-facing public radio stations have come together to figure out what are their roles, and KEXP is being the driver in that national movement. Connecting in again to the broader policy work that we were talking about earlier in terms of resources and funding, and what is the federal commitment to this ecosystem, and just really just figuring out what everybody's doing and how it potentially aligns to redefine what's possible, which right now in a vacuum is impossible to do. Like we can't like how do we get from here to there? What does it even look like? So I just think it's been so impressive, to see the work that your organization and others are doing to say, let's just not be cowed by it. Let's not be intimidated by the scale of the challenge. Let's not even feel like we need to understand what the end goal is. Let's just get, kind of build and see where it takes us.
I mean, I think that this, like, we haven't had to, in my, years and working in public radio, there hasn't been like a movement like this where people are like, let's go. Right. And so instead, nobody wants to stand by and do nothing. That's what we've realized in all of these conversations. So, we're trying a bunch of different stuff out, and that's all, and we're having uncomfortable conversations and making mistakes. And we have such a great crew of people who are understanding and correcting direct us and we do our best to bring people in to let us, to educate us and tell us what they're doing. And we are working on, a couple of actions, that are more direct actions, putting together recommendations for internal audits and kind of looking at what people's structure look like. And I mean, we're always encouraging people to go through playlists and stuff, but really looking internally to see where change needs to happen. And then as far as diversifying audiences go, we're sponsoring an initiative which is meant to be more of a community connection project. It's centered around underwriting and kind of gifting underwriting to Black-owned businesses in specific stations, localities, but it's meant to be a partnership between the station and a business that they otherwise probably wouldn't have known about or had a connection to, and so that both sides can build audience, consumer base, whatever you want to whatever weird thing you want to call it. And people are really excited about it. It's and who knows, we'll see if that works. I'm a huge believer in, I want to be supporting these stations, but I also want to be supporting these amazing businesses. Both are providing such amazing flavor to their communities, and they're important. They're what make us, and make these cities who they are. So we have some of the best storytellers around working in non-commercial radio. If we can help elevate their businesses and their communities, we have a responsibility to do that.
I love that. Well, so Jessica, if people watching today's program are interested in learning more, we've got the website in the chat, but what's the best kind of pathway for folks to plug into and amplify your work?
Oh, I mean, they can always, anybody who they'll go to the website. There's obviously a donation button if you want to donate the sponsorship program I was just talking about. But also there's an email button. You can send us a note. We'll add you to our updates and kind of agendas, and you can follow along with the stuff that we're working on. And I mean, we're always building. We're open to ideas. We want to be working with as many stations and folks as we can, and building with as many people as we can in the space. And Michael, I'm so interested to talk to you more about the policy side and how I can help, or how we can wiggle into what you guys are doing on that side also. So
lots of stuff to do. Well,
yeah.
I just really appreciate, Gabriel, you spending time with us today and everything that you bring to the world, and such a inspiration to keep us moving. And Jessica, everything that you guys are doing with FairPlay and your whole networks. And of course, Najin, thank you for walking us through all the complicated policy stuff and keeping that Capitol Hill advocacy going. And of course, thanks as always to our producer, Alex Dolvin, who always does a great job keeping this going. So,
one thing I will plug before we leave is we just launched a collaboration shirt today with our friends from Record Break-In in Philly, Black-owned record label in Philadelphia. Amazing label, by the way. I put the link in the chat if you guys want to check it out. Whatever, give us a follow on Instagram. But also, the proceeds go half to us and half to a nonprofit organization of their choosing, based in Philly. We've been doing these collaborations every other month and stuff. So just want to give them a little plug since they were so great to put us on this month. Awesome.
All righty. So thank you all for participating and watching today. And we are just, trying to keep up. So as always, questions, comments, suggestions, gently worded constructive criticism at musicpolicyforum@gmail.com. And we will have this program archive up probably on Monday. If there's something you saw today that you want to share with your friends and colleagues, please feel free to share that link. And we look forward to seeing you next Friday. Have a great, safe weekend and enjoy International Crush Day. Thanks all.